Greetings everyone, Jera here, Antioch Baptist Church, Rochester, Indiana, where I am a youth leader, not a youth pastor. I'm a teacher, not a preacher. There's a difference. If you don't know the difference, that's fine. But I say that because some people do know the difference, and it's really important for them to know that. So that is why I say that. We are continuing in Ephesians chapter 6. Last week we briefly went over verses 10 through 20 and touched base a little bit in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, and we're going to do both of those again today. But last week we went into a general idea of what the armor of God is and why we need it. And we're going to continue on that thought today and go into more detail and more specifically who our enemy is. Because when you know who your enemy is and what your enemy is capable of, then you're better prepared to protect yourself against that enemy. So continuing now in Ephesians chapter 6, we're doing verses 10 through 13 this week. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Now it begins with saying, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. You need to be in God's power. You need to be doing it in God's power, not your own. Now, going back to 2 Corinthians chapter 10, we're just going to read verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. That means they're not earthly. They're not human weapons, because we're not up against flesh and blood. Remember verse 12 said, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. This isn't flesh and blood. We don't have an earthly enemy here. We have a spiritual enemy. We're fighting a spiritual battle. So we need spiritual weapons and we need spiritual armor. And it says that our weapons of warfare are not carnal, not earthly, but mighty through God. Our weapons are mighty through God. We have spiritual weapons. We have spiritual armor, but it's only mighty through God. God is spirit. We're flesh and blood, but God is spirit. So we need to use God to help us help defend ourselves from the devil. It says, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. It says the whole armor, not just a little piece. Not like, okay, I'm good with this area, God, I just need your help with this small area. No, God, you need to let God have full control. You need the whole armor of God. The wiles of the devil. This is the tricks that he uses to deceive us, the traps that he sets for us. That's what the wiles of the devil are. I'm going to read in 1 John chapter 16. It says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of this world. It's talking about the same thing that that Ephesians 6:12 here was talking about, not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and all that stuff, the wickedness in high places. That's the things of this world. It's Satan's authority over this world, so to speak. And the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of not life, these are not of God. These are the things of this world. These are the things that Satan uses against us. The lust of the flesh, this is your desire to do something, okay? The desire to do. You feel like, okay, this is something I'm going to do because this is going to make me feel better. You're doing it to please yourself. That is the lust of the flesh. You want to do it just to make yourself happy. Then there's the lust of the eyes. The lust of the eyes is a desire to have something. You see it, you like it, you want it. You want to have it for no reason other than you saw it and you liked it. You had no desire, you had nothing to do with it 10 seconds ago, but because you saw it, now you want it. That's how cheeseburger commercials work on TV. You weren't even hungry 10 seconds ago, but because you saw that big, fat, juicy burger on TV, now you want to go to McDonald's and get yourself a cheeseburger, or Burger King, or wherever. And then there's the pride of life. This is the desire to be something. Now, it's okay to want to be. You want to be a fireman when you grow up, a policeman. You want to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. It's okay to want to be something. The issue is, why do you want to be it? Okay, some people want to be a superstar, like their favorite basketball or football player. But why do you want to be that? Is it because you're really athletic and you really love the sport and that's something you really want to do? Or do you want to be that? You want to be like your favorite superstars because there's money and there's fame and you'll get a lot of girls or a lot of guys to like you? I mean, is that why you want to be? If your reason for wanting to be that is selfish, that is how Satan uses you. That is the pride of life. Do you want to be a doctor or a lawyer because you want to help people, or because you can get rich with those professions? I mean, what is your purpose? What do you want to? Why do you want to be whatever it is you want to be? Do you want to be the president of the United States? Why do you want to be it? Is it because there are certain wrongs that you feel that you need to right, and you can, if you become a politician, you can help right those wrongs? Or is it because you want money and fame and power? What is the reason why you want to be? What is it that you want to be? Is it a godly reason, or is it a selfish reason? Because if it's a selfish reason, then that is the pride of life, and Satan can and he will use that against you. That is the wiles of the devil. He will use those things to try to trick you into doing stuff that you ought not to do. It says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We said that already. It's a spiritual battle we're fighting here. But against principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. Just as our nation's defense, our Army, our Navy, Air Force, Marines, every division you can think of, they have their ranks, There is a rank of soldiers here, and they have a commanding officer, and there's somebody over that officer, and there's someone over him, and someone over him, and so on and so forth. It's the chain of command. Satan has his chain of command, okay? The principalities, these are princes, okay? Think of a prince. A prince has command over a lot of people, but he's under the authority of another prince or a king. A prince himself doesn't have full authority. He only has authority over whatever his authority lets him have authority over. So principalities would be like the commanding officers. They have a rank of individuals that they command, and they tell that rank, this is the job we need to be done, and he tells, the rank, you do this and you do that, and so on and so forth. Then there's the powers. Powers would be the individuals that have authority over the princes. Okay, the powers, they're not completely in charge, but they're higher up than the princes. They are the ones that get to tell the princes what to do. They get command from further up the chain, and they're like, okay, you take your rank, and this is the job your rank needs to do. And then he tells another prince, this is the job that you need to have your rank do. That's the powers. Then there's against the rulers of darkness of this world. These would be like the kings, the prime ministers, the presidents. These are the rulers of the darkness of this world. Not specifically the people, but the dark forces, the fallen angels, the devils, the demons, Satan's little minions, whatever you want to call them. They're spiritual, but they're influencing the rulers of this world. They are the rulers of darkness of this world. They are the evil spirits, the dark spirits, the fallen angels. They are influencing the rulers of this world. And then there's against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now that word translated in the KJV, high places, that specific word, this is the only verse in the entire New Testament that translates that word as high places. Everywhere else in the New Testament, depending on whether it's talking about a place or a being, will either translate it as heavenly places or a celestial being. In Corinthians, it refers to the difference between a celestial being and a physical being. A celestial, of course, talking about angels. They're talking about spiritual being here. And heavenly places, of course, would be, spiritual places, not earthly places. So here we're talking about against spiritual wickedness in high places. This would be spiritual wickedness in spiritual places, basically, is what that is saying. So we're talking about Satan himself. Satan has his rulers that is influencing the rulers of this world, and then those rulers in turn have their powers that influence the principalities, and so on and so forth. Satan has his own chain of command, and those dark forces, you could say, are influencing the forces here on earth, because Satan, this is Satan's playground, and his ultimate goal, of course, is he knows his punishment is to spend eternity in hell for rebelling against God in the first place, but he hasn't been sentenced there yet. So he's going to try to take as many of us with him as he can. And so if you know Christ is your Savior, you're going to heaven. You don't have to fear hell, but Satan will use his wiles, his tricks, and his traps to try to keep you from having more people go to heaven. He doesn't want you witnessing to people. He wants to keep it so you can't get other people to go to heaven. Satan wants to get as many people going to hell with him as he possibly can. So then we get to the last verse. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. The evil day, that is the day when you are at your weakest, at your lowest. You have your absolute worst temptation. You might be really tempted to do something, or maybe you're just tempted to abandon life and God altogether. Maybe you are frustrated. Maybe maybe you're really depressed. Whatever it is, you're about ready to throw in the towel. Life can't possibly get any worse. That is the evil day. And you need the armor of God that you'll be able to withstand in that evil day. In the evil day, you are up against a stronghold. Going back to 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Remember last week we said those strongholds are like a fortress. You can't stand against it. You can't get around it. You can't penetrate. It's beating you down. The forces of that stronghold are beating you down. But guess what? If you got the armor of God on, God knocks that, he pulls that stronghold down. He pulls down that fortress as though it were just made of sand on a beach. It was a sand castle on the beach. So in the evil day, when you are up against that stronghold and you can't do anything in your own power, God, that is when you are at your weakest. That is when God shines best. That is when God's strength really shines through, because then you are completely dependent upon God to fight that battle for you. And you're saying, okay, God, I'm giving you an all-access pass to use me in every way that you possibly can. And you allow God to use you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and you're fully dependent on God. And God tears down that stronghold. And then the last part of that verse, and having done all to stand. You haven't done everything you can to stand until you let God stand for you. When you're at your knees because you can't do anything for yourself, God lifts you up and just sits you on his shoulders like, some little child on daddy's shoulders. And God's going to lift you up higher than you've ever been. But you have to let him do that. And that's what that means by being able to withstand in the evil day and having done all to stand. We're going to continue with that next week. We're going to start on verse 14 next week with the girth or the belt of truth, and possibly even the breastplate of righteousness, however far we get. But we're going to start on what the individual pieces are of the armor of God next week. And we're not going to go through all of them, obviously. Time won't allow it. But we'll start going through them one by one and going into great detail about what each piece is and how it protects you and how to put it on. Because just knowing what it does, how it protects you, won't help you if you don't know how to wear it, if you don't know how to put it on. So we'll start that next week, and I'll see you then.